The Conservative candidate Craig McKinley says he will carry on his campaign in South Thanet despite being charged with corrupt practices over his 2015 election expenses. Mr McKinley described the decision to prosecute as shocking, while Theresa May said she believed the allegations were unfounded. Mr McKinley is accused of falsely declaring expenses in the run-up to the last election, when he narrowly beat UKIP's Nigel Farage. Two other Tories were charged, Mr McKinley's then agent, Nathan Gray, and Marion Little, a senior campaign specialist at Conservative Party headquarters, who was given an OBE for political services. Last year, today's charges follow a year-long probe by this programme's investigations team. And our political correspondent, Michael Crick. This is his report.
As if Theresa May hadn't enough problems, with new polls suggesting Labour's still narrowing the gap, now one of her top candidates and a senior party official face charges of corruptly breaking election law. But Mrs May today stood firmly by her colleagues.
Well, the Conservative Party continues to believe that these allegations are unfounded. Craig McKinley is innocent until proven guilty, and he remains our candidate.
Craig McKinley, the Conservative Party candidate.
Thanet was the big contest of 2015. The Tories made huge efforts to stop the then UKIP leader Nigel Farage winning a seat at last, and got Craig McKinley elected instead. 8 months later, when the Conservatives' national spending returns were published, this programme noticed they'd claimed as national expenses almost £15,000 on rooms at this smart hotel, the Royal Harbour in the South Thanet constituency. And yet, the local expense limit for McKinley's campaign was only £15,016. Caught on camera, the big moment today when Farage was told the news.
You're joking? Oh my good Lord. Right, that's big news. OK, thank you. Craig McKinley has just been charged.
Channel 4 News, how do you feel about it?
Good. Good. It's taken it takes a long time in this country to get anything done at all, and generally the establishment can get away with what the hell they like. For once, it would appear that's not the case. Good.
Personally, how do you feel about it? I mean, this possibly cost you your seat.
Well, I think it probably... I mean, we knew they would do anything to try and stop me. At the time, I felt very bitter about it. I never said so, but I felt very bitter about it. So I think there is, it looks like a sort of degree of vindication here.
Today, Craig McKinley faces 2 charges of knowingly making false declarations of his expenses for the 2015 campaign. By law, these are corrupt practices. So, if he's re-elected next week, he'd be disqualified as an MP if convicted. McKinley's then agent, Nathan Gray, faces 1 charge of knowingly making a false declaration and 2 lesser charges of failing to deliver a true return. Most interesting, Marion Little, top election strategist at Conservative HQ in London, who got an OBE for her work last year, faces 5 charges that she did aid, abet, counsel and procure McKinley and Gray in their charges. All 3 will appear at Westminster Magistrates Court on the 4th of July. Politically, this is highly difficult for Theresa May, since Nick Timothy, her Joint Chief of Staff, was sent to Thanet to run the Tory campaign there, though there's no question of him being charged. I caught up with Mr Timothy a few months ago. Mr Timothy, my name's Michael Crick, I'm from Channel 4 News. As we know, we've been looking at the South Thanet campaign in 2015. Could you explain to us what your role was in that campaign? Mrs May herself was seen here campaigning for Craig McKinley in 2015. And behind them that day was Marion Little. Nick Timothy is also in the background in this scene, along with 2 others who now have senior jobs working closely with the PM in Number 10. And the coming trial could raise big questions about the most senior figures in Conservative HQ and the party. Who decided what, and knew what, and when? We couldn't find Craig McKinley in South Thanet today. He was clearly lying low, though we were assured his campaign was still at work. Mr. McKinley himself issued a statement saying,
"Clearly this is a shocking decision by the CPS, given that I've done nothing wrong, and I'm confident that this will be made very clear as the matter progresses. I'm very disappointed with the way this has been handled by the CPS and Kent Police, and I must question the timing of this decision. Why leave this until a few days before the election?"
Today, Conservative headquarters issued a statement. The individuals remain innocent, they said, unless otherwise proven guilty in a court of law. They added there is a broad consensus that election law is fragmented, confused and unclear, with two different sets of legislation and poor guidance from the Electoral Commission. In his response, Jeremy Corbyn was rather more careful than other party leaders.
I think it is a very bad road when democratically elected politicians start offering a running commentary on independent judicial processes. We have to have a total separation of political and judicial powers in this country.
3 weeks ago, the Crown Prosecution Service announced they wouldn't make charges relating to more than a dozen Tory candidates and their agents following this programme's investigations into the Conservatives' 2015 battle bus operation. But they left Craig McKinley's case until today. McKinley, who is also a magistrate, could face not just the prospect of being thrown out of the Commons, but he and his colleagues could face fines and jail, as well as being barred as candidates and voters for 5 years.
And Michael is with me now. Craig McKinley is perhaps a little justified in feeling that this is not very good timing.
Yes, I don't know of a previous case of a substantial candidate being charged during the middle of an election campaign, let alone charged with election offences. Now, the problem you have here is that election offences, unlike most other offences, actually have a deadline for prosecution. In this case, it was the 11th of June this year. Now, as soon as Theresa May called the election on the 18th of April, there was going to be a problem. Because coincidentally, that was the day that Kent Police sent their report to the Crown Prosecution Service. So whatever date they chose, there was going to be a problem. They could have charged him during the campaign, as they have done. They could have charged him, I suppose, on polling day, which would have been even more awkward. Or they could have charged him the day after polling day, the 9th of June, because the 10th and 11th are the weekend. So whatever date they had made their decision, it was going to be a problem.
These cases are pretty rare, aren't they?
They are indeed. I mean, the last election expenses case against an MP or former MP was Fiona Jones, the Labour MP for Newark, way back in 1999. She was actually convicted, but then won on appeal and managed to keep her seat.